Hey. Oh man, going last at a 2-day conference. I don't normally get nervous. I don't know what's going on, but I'm actually nervous. I present for a living. I literally have done like 100 workshops, but I think I just love this conference so much, and the organizers and everyone involved. It's huge for this community. So I was talking to my friend, Devin Lindsay. She may have been trying to sell you on working at Apple recently at the booth over there. And I was telling her that I was a little bit nervous. In fact, you know what? Take my glasses off. Maybe I'll be less nervous 'cause I can't see you. And I was just kind of telling her that people come up to me about my talk 2 years ago at React Rally, and they told me like that it like blew their mind, or like it was awesome, or they think about it regularly. It was kind of the first time a lot of people saw render props, and my sort of ridiculous fetch component that like now most of you have in your app somewhere, your own flavor of it. And she said, well, React hasn't really, Devin said this to me, she said, well, I don't think you have to feel that kind of pressure for like a really great talk, because it's not like React is changing lately or anything like that. It's not like anyone's going to drop some like bomb about React. We're about right here, and there's a bomb coming. So I don't know if you like fell in love with render props, but just, you know, reevaluate that relationship a little bit. But I want to talk about routing and suspense. Andrew Clark on the React team, he's been pretty much spearheading the new suspense feature in React. And he says, here's a fun game. I call it Count the Placeholders. Load a web page and observe how many times something pops onto the screen before the load is complete. I'll go first. This is my favorite example from Facebook's ad manager. So I don't feel bad putting this up here because he already put it out there on Twitter. Are you counting? So let's start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's go over here. 6, 7, 8, these two little ones. And then was there one under there? Did we get 9? So I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're at 9. This one's fun. Just a little button right there. So we've got 10, right? Upper left? What are you doing up there, guy? I love that one because it comes late, and then like, it's like, oh, we're done? Okay, I'll go away. Oh man, how did we get here? What happened? So if we just do a regular old website, just a server-rendered thing, the UX of clicking a link is pretty simple. We click the link, the old screen stays, and then the new page shows up. This is a web page I made like 8 or 9 years ago. I was getting a haircut. The guy started talking to me, and I was like, yeah, I'll make you a website for $400. And he handed me a business card that was green and yellow, and then he gave me like this pamphlet that like said all of this funny stuff about pro cuts. And he's like, just make that a website. So there we go. However, mobile is a little bit different. When we click on something like Family Tree down there, you notice it animates, and then we get a blank screen, or if we click on a word link, blank screen, and then the data loads. So they're actually totally opposites on how we handle navigating on the web and native with what we're mostly used to on web and native. So the web generally pauses the old screen. It's not really pausing it, it's just waiting until we get a connection to the next website. And then as soon as we get that connection, it switches over. Whereas mobile, we just switch over immediately. And we see that sometimes on the sliding menus as well. Do the animation, throw a spinner up. So web frameworks pretty much took the web route, didn't mean for that pun, the web route of routing. And the first one that I used was Embers. And Ember changed everything for me with routing. And I realized that we could really do some awesome stuff in web browsers. And Ember had this model hook, or has this model hook, on the routes, I forgot my water. I won't survive. It's in the corner over there. Can you bring it up to me? When you return a promise out of this model, it will wait for all of these promises to resolve before it'll transition to the next page. And so in React Router, thank you. In React Router, we followed suit. We had this on-enter hook. And so we didn't do a promise. We gave you a callback, and then you could fetch some stuff, and we'd call back later. No. No. You'll have your moment. Or I'll have my moment, no. So this was React Router version 1, 2, and 3. It was all pretty much the same API, just tiny tweaks. And so we did the same thing. We would wait for these on-enter hooks, is what we call them, to resolve or get called back before we would transition to the next page. And this was really hard for us in React because we had to step outside of React to do it. And that's why React Router version 1, 2, and 3 were weird. My old business partner, Michael Jackson, and I, we would do these workshops together, and we'd teach all about this great composition model that React had, and then we'd do our lesson on React Router, and it was like, yeah, just forget everything else we talked about for this. But it was because of this. We had to step out of React and be kind of a framework outside of React itself. Vue followed suit as well. Before route enter, fetch something, return a promise. I should have done a return there. Angular does something similar. Well, here's the rest of Angular's to do that. I've got really bad news for you. React has this now, and you're going to see it. I got other bad news. I made another router. No, if there was a negative clap, you could like, yeah, boo, throw some tomatoes at me. So the client routers that we've used and that we see today, they all wait for the data. But our apps have a choice. We can use those hooks that the client routers give us, or we can use things like component did mount. And we can say, okay, when the component mounts, let's go fetch this data. And so we had a choice with these routers to wait or not wait. So let's check out what it feels like when we're waiting or not. I gave a few things away there. All right, so here is a little app. This is how I track my workouts. So this is a fast network, and we're going to wait. Feels pretty good. I click the link, you see it kind of turns red. We wait a second, and then we get to the next page. It's nice. Here is a slow network where we wait. Whoa, my goodness. This app. I just want to work out my pre-workout mix. I'm already like buzzing. I need to do this now. Okay, so let's switch it up. Let's keep our network slow, but now let's transition to spinners instead of waiting. It's better though, right? I'm not just staring at the screen thinking that the app died. Users will keep clicking the link. If you do some user testing, you'll see them do that. And so this way, at least I click and I know, okay, it took my click. It gets a little bit of data and it starts rendering whatever it understands, and then it moves on. So I think that this is a good experience when you have a slow network. So let's go with a fast network where we transition to spinners. Ah! That's the state of React right now, right? That's what most of our apps are doing. It's very much my fault because React Router version 4 took away the on-enter hooks because it just became React. It just became components. We weren't outside of React anymore, and so we couldn't wait to go to the next screen. So we end up with, let me get over here. We end up with this little table. If we have a strategy of waiting, then a fast network is good, slow network is bad. If our strategy is go to spinners, our fast network is bad. Our slow network, that's a good experience. So it's hard to know for an app to decide what to do, and as a team to decide, okay, do we want to wait or do we want to go to spinners? What if we could, I don't know. Well, hang on, let me show you this tweet. I just realized that an image is a component with async data requirements, and nobody's trying to pause rendering on route transitions for that. So as the author of a popular routing library, I got a lot of feedback about, like, why can't I prevent rendering? And I'm like, it's not my problem. I'm just a component, and you've got image components, why aren't you complaining about that? Or like on the server, we're not waiting for images and loading them into like a base64 URL to come into your HTML, right? But we want to wait for data when we're server rendering with React. This was me being a little bit naive because there is a way to do it with both strategies. So what if we could do, what if could have a mix? What if I have a slow network and we'll wait, we'll be patient, we'll give it 2 seconds, and then if we don't have data yet, let's go to spinners. But if we get data before those 2 seconds, then we can just go to a fully rendered page. Not bad. When we switched over to this page, we had some of the information, we just didn't have all of it. And we gave it 2 seconds to try to get all of the data. Now let's go to a fast network with this same kind of code. So if I click on chest and back, we go immediately to the screen. We don't get the spinner flashing, and since we have a fast network, we can go straight there. But if people have a slow network, we go to spinners so that they know that the app hasn't died. Also, this little bit of data right here could be a little bit different. So this is coming from one endpoint. These exercises are coming from another endpoint. And then this next workout is a separate endpoint. These two, you can imagine, on your server are going to be cached really well because they're the same for any user. But this up next cardio, that depends on if the workout's completed. And so now we got to go look up some user data. And maybe that's our old endpoint that's super slow. And so we're getting the workout information really fast, but we're not getting the up next very fast. So let's check out a network that's like that. So this isn't the network anymore. This is simply our super slow API. What if we could transition, give it 2 seconds, go if we've got some of the data, and then throw up spinners for the pieces that we don't? What if we had that fine-grained control to say, okay, this little section of the page is slow, but this section is fast. And at the same time, all that code would also handle a slow network for a user that's at the hotel, or a fast network when you're at the hotel tethering on your phone. So that'd be pretty awesome. What I think is funny, though, is that we even have this term, route transition. Like, that's a thing that we say, a route transition. Well, all routing is a response to a state change. What's the URL? It's a different state now, so let's show something else. Everything in our components do that. Route transitions are not different than any other transition. They're just transitions. So let's look at the code and see what we've got going on here. I'm going to start back over at just workouts. Actually, let me pull this in. Let's look at our old code first. Let's look at how we would have done this before. So we're gonna do a little bit of refactoring here, and we're also gonna fail to compile, which will be awesome. Oh, I know what I did. Oh, never mind. Shoot. I should not have changed this right before I came up. What do? We're going to do this. We'll save it. It's just right there. What did we name these things? That's what they are. And then we'll come back up. Sorry about that. What? It's not in my register? Oh. I need a bigger window. There's like 2 demos now that I've just screwed up that I can't go to because I'm wasting so much time here. All right, so I want app. Oh, I hit the wrong button. That's funny. Okay. So much suspense. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to just give up here in a second, I think. Read workouts is not defined. Refactor. This was all ready to go. And then I took a nap. Render the app. I'm not actually. Okay, I've got a different way to do this. Here we go. Nope. This is the worst performance I have ever had. I can't wait till they edit it on the... It's... What? Okay. I blew it. I'm just going to type some code. We're not going to see this one happen live. So, I want class workout. Yeah, I lost all of my... There it is. Here you are, my friend. And now I'm in app, and now I got workout, and then I save this, and then I go back to index, and then we bring in the refactor, because this is important. It's not exporting. Well, whatever. We're just gonna look at this. We'll just look at code. I promise it works. So this is what our code used to look like before React Suspense. We've got our state in here, and when our component mounts, we call fetch. And then here in our fetch, we fetch a workout, we fetch some exercises, we fetch the next workout, because this is all data that we're going to need down here in our render method. And so now we got our render method where we're looking at this. We're like, okay, I got my workout, I got my exercises, and I got my next workout. You've done this. Do I have the data? No. All right, let's throw the spinner up there. Otherwise, let's render this stuff. Do I have the exercises? Yes. No. Let's throw a spinner up there. Is the workout done? Do I have the next one? Let's render it. No. All right. Let's throw a little bit of text and a spinner up there. And then we've got all of these lifecycle hooks too. This is one that people get, they mess up very regularly. You forget the did update. And you got to say, oh, did we switch pages? Did we go from a different workout to the next workout? So we got to check our workout ID and then go and set state, right? Because you got to clear out the old stuff because you don't want to be, it happens with images a lot where your image doesn't have a key. And so you go to a new page and then it keeps showing the old user's avatar and then like that thing comes in later. And then you got to go refetch it. So with React Suspense, this all gets a lot easier. So the way that this works is you have these things called resources. So we've got this workout resource, workouts resource, exercise resource, next workout resource. We'll go look at one of those. And then the refactor is really nice. We actually just come right here into our render method. We say, all right, instead of doing all this stuff, pulling it off of state, we're going to say our workout is workout resource.read. We pass it a cache, and then we give it a workout ID so that it knows where to find it. And then we do the same thing for everything else. We say, here's our exercises, and this is going to be from the exercise resource. And then we'd have our next workout, and that's going to come from next workout resource. And we saw yesterday from Brandon's talk that these readers actually will throw a promise to try to get the data. So when React comes around to render, it'll hit this, and we won't have it in the cache. And so then React will suspend and wait for that data to load. And then it'll come back around after that data loads, and then it'll hit this one and try to get that as well. And then from here, we don't need any of the state because we're getting it from these resources, which also means that we don't need to do this little spinner dance. So we can get rid of that stuff. And then we don't need to do this little check. Do we have exercises? Doesn't matter. But if we want a spinner, this is cool. In the parent component, you put a placeholder in there. And you say, here's some delay milliseconds. So I want to delay 1 second. And if this data underneath here isn't there yet, then I want to put in the fallback UI. And then that could be our spinner. And so then we'll have our placeholder in here. But there's something kind of important here, is I'm asking for the exercises here. And so this placeholder won't work yet. So what I can actually do is I don't need to pass this data to exercises anymore. I can get rid of that, just give it a workout ID, and then move this exercises reader into the exercises component, where I actually read it and where I actually use it. That's a pretty important distinction about suspense. Is in order to suspend before with all of our routers and stuff, we had to go all the way to the top. And then even inside of components, a lot of times in this screen, you're going to be rendering a lot of data, and so you'd have to do all the fetching there for all of the child components. But Suspense lets us move those data requirements closer to where they actually get rendered, and in fact, right inside of the component that renders them. And then we're able to put these placeholders around them to get those spinners if we're suspending or not. And then same here, this workout.completed. We'll have this next workout. So we can do the same thing here. Say if we've completed this workout, let's do another placeholder around that, and then drop that in there. And then our fallback UI becomes this stuff right there. That's going to be a little ugly, but we'll deal with it. Michael Chan said that that's fine if it's ugly. So this is kind of cool. The data dependencies move down to where the data is rendered, where we declare those things. And then the placeholders, the spinning logic, is no longer a whole bunch of branching all over in your component. It's just right there in the parent component. So the parent component still gets to control the placeholder behavior, but it doesn't have to own the data requirement. That's huge. You've got now data encapsulation for these components. If this thing were working, I would show you that we've got a major problem. Our data, we're gonna read this workout. Oh, this next workout, we got to move that one down as well to next workout. There you are. This is going to cause a waterfall problem. So sorry about that. What that means is we're going to make the first request. React is going to come around and render right here, and it's going to try to read from this cache, and then it's going to do something with algebra and calculus, and I can't remember how that works. I failed college algebra. But it's going to stop rendering, and then it's going to wait for that promise to come back, and then it will continue going. And now it's going to come down here. It'll hit exercises. Exercises is going to throw a promise, and so now we're going to wait for that one. And then we will also, when we get here to next workout is going to then throw a promise, and we're going to wait for that one. We actually we don't need to wait for all of these things. Like, this is going to be a big gotcha of Suspense when we start shipping it into our apps, is we're going to see probably these waterfall issues. So the way that we fix this is the parent can actually say, you know what, I know that I've got exercises on here, so the exercises resource, instead of calling read, I'm going to call preload. And then that will not throw a promise, but it will call that promise and make it start start preloading it. And so then we can do the same thing for our next workout resource. And so we can say in the parent, hey, I know that I've got these things, and I want to avoid the waterfall issue, and so I'm going to start preloading them. And now all 3 of these requests will go out at the same time and come back at the same time. But we still, as the parent, get control over which pieces we care about waiting for. So we could actually do some really cool stuff, like we could say, you know what, these exercises, they come back really fast. So let's not have a lot of patience for that. Let's just say, this is usually pretty quick, so let's have some patience. We'll give it 2 seconds. But this one, the next workout thing, the one that we were looking at, oh yeah, it's all busted. The little mini spinner down at the bottom, that was the API endpoint that maybe is really slow. And so we could just say, you know what? We are not patient at all with you. And so what will happen in our app is when a user clicks on a link, the exercise, we'll give it 2 seconds for the exercises to come back and the workout to come back. And then if we get that within 2 seconds, we'll immediately transition over and then throw the spinner up for the next workout, which is really nice because now you can, all your pages have different pieces that are slower and faster than others. So you have this amazing fine-grained control to deal with it. So what does this mean for our routing? What if, here, let me get some code actually working again. Yeah, right, it won't, but we'll try anyway. Oh, that's not it. There we go. Oh, that was fast. That was as fast as Reason's hot reloading, I think. I went to unscrew the cap like I'm Orrin Hatch, taking off my glasses that don't exist. Look that up. It's hilarious. Okay. So here I've got, so the first thing that it means for routing is that no one's going to complain to the router anymore about pausing rendering, because that's not a router concern. That is a view layer's concern. How to transition from one screen to another. That's not always going to be wrapped up in a route. Sometimes maybe that's between 2 tabs and you want to leave the old tab up or something. No longer do you have to move all those data dependencies way up so that you can pause rendering. Instead, you can put them where they naturally belong and then throw some placeholders around them with some delay milliseconds, and just how patient do we want to be with this? The other thing that it means for routing is this was kind of tricky as I was building a new router. It's I guess I haven't told you what it's called. I don't need to. You'll just be mad. So there is one out there. Go find it. When you are suspending, let's go to a slow network. That wasn't. Let's do this one. When you're suspending, you might go, "Are you kidding me?" I'm gonna give up. No more conference talks for me. That is strange. Let me try one more. Now I've just busted everything, literally all of it. Well, you know what? I've got another app in here, written by the Facebook developers, and so it'll probably work. Nope, because I ruined all that too. Oh, no. We're good. Okay, cool. So when we're suspending like that, I actually rewrote this one to use the reach router. So when we click on one of these things, notice we're waiting for the data for the next page, and a user might click the next one really fast, right? So they're waiting for one of them, and they're like, oh, actually, no, Dominic. Actually, no, Sebastian. Actually, no. Okay, I made it to Sebastian. Think about the browser history. Every time you click on a link, it's going to push an entry into the browser history. And the URL is actually changing as we go through all of these, as we're trying to fly through them. And so the browser history, if it's not suspense aware, if your router's not suspense aware, it's going to be putting in an intermediate screen. So if you click on one link and then you click on another before suspense is done, you're going to see this screen, and if the user clicks the back button, you're going to see that other screen that the user actually never saw that doesn't actually belong there. Reach router in the history knows that we're suspending, and so any calls to push while React is in suspense will actually just call a replace, and so when the user clicks the back button, it will go exactly to where they want it to go. So that was a tricky thing when I was first messing around with this, and that is honestly the reason why I built the new router, Reach router, was because I wanted to play with suspense, and I needed to not be using the lifecycle hooks, the old ones, and so I just built it, and then it was awesome, and so I've always approached my open source that if I make something that I want to use, maybe somebody else does, so I pushed it out there. So that's one of the concerns with suspense and routing. Another one is that scroll management. So when we go to one of these screens and then we click the back button, we actually want to come back to where we were before. And so this is a difficult thing. And I tried to generalize it with React Router a few times, and I failed a few times. And there are some good implementations out there, but what's really tricky about it is you don't want to restore the scroll position to somewhere that hasn't loaded yet. So if I was over here, if I was scrolled down here, and then I clicked the back button, and for some reason my cache was empty on the data on the old page, I would be moving the scroll position to a screen that isn't filled in yet. And so it was unreliable. You had all these race conditions with data. So you'd have to try to teach the scroll management about your data. Now that React allows us to put this async stuff inside, scroll management became a whole lot easier for me because I don't have to think about any of that stuff because my scrolling happens in component did mount. Component did mount will not get called until React suspense is done. So that was awesome. Additionally, focus management. Reach router manages the focus of your page. So as you click on links, it knows which section of the page changed in nested routes, and then it will go and focus that part of the screen so that screen reader users don't get lost on the page. Normally, you just get stuck on the last link that you clicked, and then you got to go try to figure out what changed on the page. And so that was also hard to deal with before suspense because again, you might try to focus something that's not there because we've just got a spinner. But now with suspense, we have a fully formed page before the lifecycle hooks component to mount gets called, and now I can go and move focus to that section of the page for you, and your app becomes a little more accessible without you having to do anything. Let's see if the time slicing demo works. Time slicing is pretty cool. You may have seen Dan Abramov's talk with this. Notice the URL. Hey, oh, we don't have it up there. Here we go. Now we're going to do some live code, and it's going to work, and then we're all going to go to the party, and everyone's going to be super happy about everything, including me. I won't cry my whole flight back to Seattle like I'm about to right now. Okay, so here is the, let's double check. Yeah, we're in here, time slicing. So I'm going to bring in two components from here. I'm going to bring, or two things. I'm going to bring in navigate, and normally bring in router and link, but I'm going to bring in a thing called location, because that's all we need for this. I'm going to bring it in from reach router, and then down here, I'm going to render a location. And then this is going to call back to me with that location. And then I'll pass the location into this app. My syntax highlighting doesn't look good, so I'm obviously doing something wrong here. There we go. Okay. Let's actually pass in a thing called the query. what's the location? Search, subster, or is it substring? And then up here is where they're doing their thing. So there's a to-do in here. It's their code. There's maybe a bug, so don't worry about that set timeout. It tends to make lots of bugs go away, right? So this is their code where they're setting the state as you type in the value. So instead, we're going to use our this.props.query that we just passed in down here. And then, as the user is typing, right here, handle change. Let's come up to this handle change. And instead of calling set state, we are going to call navigate. And we're going to navigate to just a query. Actually, we can do this. Reach router supports relative links, which is, you should clap for that. But anyway. So you can just add a query to the current screen that you're on. Yeah, so we're just going to navigate to there. I mean, I'm batting like 0 for 3 right now, so get me off the stage. Hey, what's up? Oh, you're saying wow, but nothing's updating. Oh, yeah, I remember what I missed. So right here, our chart, where we make the data. Instead of this .state.value, we're going to do this .props.query. There's a lot of UIs that want to do this, right? You want to type in the thing and put it in the query string, but you could never do it because a router is at the top of the page and then it re-renders the whole thing. And this is something that has bothered me for 4 years because it was one of the first use cases I ever had for React Router, and we couldn't end up using it because it was just too slow. But now with Suspense and time slicing, which are built on the same the fiber rewrite, it allows this to happen. So what's the consideration with the router? What was important here? When the location changes in reach router, instead of just calling a set state in the location component, it actually uses what's called a deferred updates. And so that marks that update as low priority. So what we're saying is, hey, the route changed, but that's probably one of the least important bits of data in an app. We can wait for something like, or we can be lower priority than the user typing in here. So this is super cool. Really, Suspense and time slicing. It's like we just had all these issues with React Router and React that I always just felt like were not my problem. I thought Horse.js was supposed to take things out of context to say something false. This was true. Totally gave up. It was like you want to load data on the server before you render React, and so you want to know what data you need, and you want to put that data on your components. And it's like, I got to rewrite React to do that for you. I want to pause the old screen or maybe go to spinners. It's just, routers are all about switching screens, and so I'm probably 10 times more excited about Fiber and Suspense than anybody else as a router maintainer. But I think that this is a whole new chapter for React. I mentioned render props earlier. Think about this. Almost every time you use a render prop, you're probably trying to get some async data from somewhere. If you come and look at these readers, this would have been in a render prop before, right? We'd have workouts, then it would come in here. They're going to go away for a lot of use cases. This kind of state right here is it's a new kind of state for React. It lives in this cache thing. What does that remind you of? A little bit like the state we put in Redux. So a lot of your Redux use cases are probably going to go away when you start using Suspense. All those lifecycle hooks that we saw before to manage fetching the data, all that goes away because as our, right here in our workout component, Oh, this is the old stuff. But workout resource.read. Right here, when we pass in that workout ID, if you get a re-render, you're going to get a cache miss. And so you're automatically going to start fetching it without any of those lifecycle hooks. So this is a awesome new time for React. So watch out for a bunch of cool changes. There's one more thing, and then we're going to end. Let's say that you're bringing in your competitions component like this. This is one of your route components. They just shipped this morning. I'm gonna do this, and then we're out of here. Or I'm not. Yeah, let's do it. What if instead we said competitions equals react.lazy, import So down here, I've got my competitions component. I didn't change anything about that. It's still just being rendered. All I did was change its definition. Oh, I'm doing theirs. But anyway, this will now suspend and wait for that code to come in. This was another thing that routers are expected to do, is help me handle async loading of my bundle splitting. React built it in to React itself. That is awesome. So all of these concerns that I used to think were router concerns, and then I decided they were not router concerns and shipped v4, now React has actually solved all those problems, and it's awesome. You're going to clap, but I want you to be clapping for the Facebook team who's been working on this, especially Andrew Clark. He's been publishing awesome code to React to make all this happen. So thank you very much. I think I'm supposed to do like a last slide that's like, hey, what's up? And then I went to the first one.